right, welcome to a Nosebleed perspective. I'm joined here today by the Cheech himself and our buddy Caleb Staten. Gibby's out today because he has a newborn baby, so he gets to use that excuse to be absent from our podcast. But Caleb, very well versed sports guy, back to back fantasy champ in our fantasy league. So he is here. We're going to do an episode kind of just hitting on mostly NFL and college football, just kind of a recap what's going on the past few weeks. We've been kind of gone for a couple weeks because of Gibby having that damn baby. Just kidding. We love Ledge.
Damn baby.
But yeah, so excited to have you on, Caleb. Hopefully,
welcome.
You're, yeah. He's a listener to the show, so.
Absolutely. Biggest fan. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, he is. He's one of our only fans who just sit there and won't listen to all our podcasts, so we appreciate that.
I love it.
All right. So, I'll go ahead and start us off. We're going to start with the NFL. So past few weeks, there's been a lot of movement, a lot of just kind of obviously just issues in sports and society, blah, blah, blah. We're going to hit you with some light, go towards the NFL. A few big names have been on the market still in free agency. Logan Ryan, Jadeveon Clowney, still probably the biggest, I would say. But Earl Thomas recently was just cut by the Ravens. Just wondering if you guys had any thoughts on Earl Thomas, where he may go, or if Jadeveon Clowney gets signed, or do you think he does? Or I'm sure he will, but he asked for what was like $20 million, so he wants to get paid like a top rusher in the NFL. But what are your all thoughts on those three guys? What do you think, Cheech?
So, Earl Thomas, I definitely think that Earl Thomas would be a great addition to the Jets, especially since we lost Jamal Adams. It would be nice to have a safety back there that can hit, but I know it's not going to happen because that's just not the Jets' MO. Somebody during our draft mentioned him going to the Seahawks. I don't know if you guys heard that in the background. Somebody said that out loud. Yeah. That kind of shocked me because that'd be crazy pairing him up with Jamal Adams over at the Seahawks. But one team that I could see Earl Thomas fitting into that's already pretty deep on defense and is a team, and it's the reason why I drafted them as my defense, is the Cleveland Browns. I can see Earl Thomas going over there and just sliding right into that defense. Just one more puzzle piece for that Super Bowl winning team that's going to happen.
Jeez. I mean, the Jets is ideal. They need a safety, obviously. But, boy, that's not going to happen. We all know that. I mean, come on.
When you talk about all three of those dudes, the Jets could take all three of them. Like, C.J. Mosley backed out. I know that he was a more of a middle linebacker, and Jadeveon Clowney is an edge guy. But I would take Clowney on the Jets, too. Like, the Jets need any of these three defenders. I'd be happy with any of them. I just don't foresee it happening. I'm honestly surprised too that Jadeveon Clowney is still on the free agency line there, and that nobody's taking him. Is he worth the money?
I don't know. It's going to come down to what he's willing to back down to, I think. But Caleb, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I know like most of the talk has been Earl Thomas to the Cowboys, but I still think, especially with the fact that they just had to cut Gerald McCoy and they have that extra money, I think that that's the most obvious fit. To the Seahawks, that would be insane. Earl Thomas is that guy, I think, that has to be the guy on a defense. Yeah. And he has to have that. So if he was to go to the Seahawks again, he's not going to be that guy. So
didn't he flick off Pete Carroll when he got carted off the field in Arizona, like his last time playing for Seattle?
The entire sideline, didn't he? Yeah, he flipped him off, I think.
So. That would be
There's definitely bad blood.
Yeah, it would be wild if he ended up back there, especially a counterpart to Jamal Adams. I mean, Jesus Christ. I think that Earl Thomas, he's set to get still $9 or $10 million from the Ravens in guaranteed money. So he's, you would hope if you're another team trying to sign him, he takes a veteran friendly or a team friendly deal where he's going to make $5-6 million maybe, hopefully. And he's still going to get paid $14, $15, $16 million. He's still going to be really fucking high paid. So it's kind of a wild card. I don't have like a specific team because I just have no clue. But whoever signs him is probably going to get him on a deal, and it's going to be a good deal for both sides. So interested to see how that plays out. What's up?
Sleeper team, the Bucks.
Ooh.
I feel like
Ooh.
secondary help.
Yeah, they need help in the secondary too. Wow, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Earl Thomas goes to the Bucks? Their Super Bowl chances probably go up in the eyes of the media, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head how much cap space the Bucks have, but I imagine they have enough to bring him on.
I mean, it depends on him too. Like, is he one of those players who want to win, like those veterans, like Sean McCoy and Gronk, who are just signing, kind of those veteran deals, and they end up being on a team who has an actual chance. So, because he's gonna get that money, he's still owed that money from the Ravens. So,
yeah,
interesting.
Tampa Bay's sitting at third with the most cap space.
Okay, so there you have it.
Yeah, they can get Clowney and Earl Thomas.
You heard it here on a Nosebleed Perspective first. Earl Thomas going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl. All right, so sticking with the NFL. So crowd noise has kind of been a factor, obviously, since the beginning of time in football stadiums. With COVID happening, everything going on right now, we don't know exactly what the rules and regulations are going to be going forward with the season. We've seen, the NBA and the NHL do the bubbles with no fans, but let's just kind of say there's no fans or a very minimal amount of fans. Which teams do you think have an advantage, or which teams have a disadvantage of the lack of crowd noise? You guys have any thoughts on that?
I'll let Caleb start that since his team plays in the loudest stadium.
Hey, let's do it. So, I mean, honestly, I think the Chiefs are probably one of the teams that are most disadvantaged because they do thrive on that. And I think the second factor is the most the teams with the most continuity left over from last year. Like you got the Saints, the Chiefs. I'm at the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to tell you who has the most continuity, but those teams would be able to have more advantage with crowd noise because they're more familiar with each other. They can function in that. So I would say they're probably at the most disadvantage. But hey, I mean, let's be honest. The real winner of all of this is us, the viewers on the TV, being able to hear everybody talk shit to each other. All the calls, the awesome things that we're going to hear on the field. I am so excited for that. It's going to be sick.
Yeah, we've seen it in the UFC. We've seen it in the bubble of the NBA. We've seen it, across the world now that sports have kind of been a little different. We've seen all the voices. It's pretty awesome, and you are right. We are the winners here. So.
Yeah. I'm actually excited to see. So I do think the Chiefs are going to be at a disadvantage. Same with the Seahawks. Those are two teams that are just used to crowd noise. But I'm interested in seeing if teams incorporate just not calling it out, when they're doing audibles, like figuring something else out instead of calling it out, because they know that it's going to be so easy for the defense to hear it. So if they're going silent at the line, I feel like they're going to almost have to do that because every single thing that the quarterback says is going to be heard loud and clear by every defender.
Yep.
So there's going to be no slipping anything by the defense. Any audible is going to be heard. So they're going to have to come up with some other way of changing plays at the line without giving away their calls, or else they're just going to have to every single week come up with new things to say, which is just going to, I'm sure they already do something similar to that already, but it's going to add that extra degree of tactic to what they have to do. But definitely the Chiefs and the Seahawks are most disadvantaged, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point with the quarterback and the O-line right there. I mean, that quarterback room, that O-line room, they have to be, because you said changing each game. They have to change each quarter, almost every set of downs, because they're used to that, like you said. And with no crowd noise, it's going to be hard for defenses not to pick up on stuff. I mean, because stadiums get pretty loud. If you've been to a game, you know how loud they actually get, and it's just going to be a whole different ballgame when it comes to that. So that's just one other thing for those guys to have to practice and work on in the off season. So, but yeah, I'd say my winner for this. I do agree that at the disadvantage of the Chiefs, just because Arrowhead is just one of the most riled up stadiums. We've all known that. If they get behind again, like in the playoffs, they were at home, luckily for them, and they got behind a couple times, and they were probably able to use that crowd noise as an advantage and get back into that game. That's going to be a huge factor for them because we've seen the Chiefs get behind. I wish Gibby was here to kind of talk about that too, but that could be a huge factor with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. The real winner here, I think this is just, besides us, the viewers, an easy selection for me. The Los Angeles Chargers. Look, instead of playing like, you know, 0 home games, they get like, you know, there's nobody going to be there, and it's going to work out for them. They have 0 away games now, so instead of having 16 of them, that they feel like every visiting fan base is at their games at their home base. They're going to have just 16 games, just super neutral, and nobody there to boo them at their home field. So I'm pretty sure they're well prepped for this. They're excited for this. They're on Hard Knocks, so check them out Tuesday nights on HBO. And yeah, I think the Chargers are the winners here. So that's just an easy one for me. So yeah.
It's a real shame though that the Rams, Chargers, Raiders are not going to be able to have fans in their new stadiums. That sucks.
What's that? They are. Is that definite? Did you say?
Oh well, I don't know. The word right now is at least you're not going to. So yeah. I'm just saying, but to not be able to have that like raucous crowd, that like opening day where the Chargers are going to be able to get fans in because it's a new stadium.
Yeah, and it sucks. They just built that super expensive stadium, the SoFi Stadium, and they're just not going to be able to fill it. It's tough.
Yeah, I bet the ownership is just freaking out about the amount of money that they're just losing. I know that stadium was extremely expensive. I don't remember the number, but we talked about it a few months back and just freaked out about what the number was.
I'm pretty sure it hit the billions, but
yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about the Raiders too. They're in that new place in Vegas, and just sucks how much money is just going down the absolute fucking drain with all this. So
yeah.
Interested. It's gonna be fun, but it's gonna suck for some teams. And but I think the Chargers looking at this like, you know, we had no fans last year. Normal. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so Ron Rivera, just real quick, we'll hit on Washington. Ron Rivera gets diagnosed with cancer and keeps pushing, and he's going to do everything he can to make that team successful. And ownership couldn't even decide on a team name. Just like you got one guy in the organization who's doing his best. He's getting diagnosed with cancer, and they couldn't. It's just like black and white for me. It's just dark days for the Washington Red Potatoes, as Cheech has so kindly dubbed them. T's and P's to Ron Rivera for sure. But if you guys, I don't know if you have anything on this, but just it's just tough look for Washington right now.
It's pathetic, man. I mean, it's already a franchise that is not a winning franchise. Like, I could see if they historically were a winning team that the fans were behind, that America loved. Like, okay, yeah, and now you're doing this thing to get rid of this controversy with your name. Cool. Okay, you're going to take a year to figure out what you're going to call your new team. Copy. Got it. But you're a terrible football team that is already like, you're already reaching to try and have fans. And now you can't even name your football team. So your football team is named the Washington Football Team. Like, it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing that like they can't be decisive enough on a name. I don't know. It's mind blowing to me that an ownership of a football team can't name their football team.
And it's too bad because I mean they had some really good options for a team name that they could have jumped into. You know, the Red Wolves I think was one. The Red Tails, both of those are fantastic. So it's just a shame. I mean, Ron Rivera, man, that dude cannot catch a break. Like, he's always been one of the most respected coaches in the league. And, you know, he had won that one kind of Super Bowl run. He got to the Super Bowl. But and other than that, man, he has just never had a team. So just for him to go in there and now have this happen, it's just too bad. But really wish him all the best. But hopefully Alex Smith can come back and maybe rescue his season. But we'll see.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
It'd be nice to see Alex Smith on that football field again. It's funny that you did mention like the possible names. I remember reading that like some dude like trademarked every single name that the Redskins were thinking about using. So then it was like the guy had to if the Redskins wanted to use, or I guess the Washington football team wanted to use those names, they would have to purchase it from that guy. And he was just asking for millions of dollars for all of these names that they had considered using.
Maybe that's the reason. He's like, oh, Red Wolves, Red Tails, that sounds good and all, but we're just going to go with this football team kind of thing right now. But, oh, that's funny. All right, so Arizona Cardinals, Cheech's team to go 10-6. See about that. They, allegedly, Hopkins wants a new deal after the Cardinals basically gave up absolutely nothing for him. David Johnson, a couple, draft picks, blah, blah, blah. Do they have to pay him sooner or later? Do you think they have to make a deal before the season starts? What do you guys' thoughts on old DeAndre's contract situation?
I'll start off. Obviously they're going to have to pay him. They kind of got him at a weird time because he's like towards the end of his prime, which is unfortunate. But I mean, he obviously is still in his prime, but he's getting towards the end of it. So maybe if they got him in a year or two, they might be able to actually pay him as a little less as a veteran. But they're definitely going to have to pay him. I mean, I think Julio is the top paid, right? Highest paid right now. He's making like $22 million or something.
Yeah, he's up there for sure.
Yeah, I know Tyreek's getting a lot too, but
yeah, I mean he's gonna have to be up there. I'm sure he makes 19 to 20 million, but it's just crazy that I just can't believe he moved. Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. I mean DeAndre Hopkins. So he's currently getting 12.5, and he's definitely worth. I mean, what was Sammy Watkins supposed to get paid this season? Wasn't he supposed to get paid like 20 something?
Yeah, I wish Gibby was here to tell us exactly because he probably knows for sure. But
I know Sammy Watkins' contract going into the season was absolutely just ignorant. So yeah, DeAndre Hopkins should get paid, deserves to get paid, and the Arizona Cardinals absolutely deserve to be giving him what he asked for. But DeAndre Hopkins, it also doesn't seem like he's going to hold out. He's probably happy to be somewhere new. And honestly, like he's one of those dudes that I could just see him just putting it out on the field and proving that he deserves to get paid rather than just like being a Dak Prescott and saying, oh, pay me. Like DeAndre Hopkins he's going to make it. He's going to show that he's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, and he also sees probably these tight ends getting paid, Kelsey and George Kittle, and they're getting top dollar. And he's like, I mean, look at me. I've been the best receiver or top 2 or 3 receivers in the league the past few years. What do I get? And I kind of like look at this from a perspective like, I feel like I do agree they do have to pay him, but I look at it like kind of like when the Rams traded for Jalen Ramsey, they had to know full well what his contract situation was. Like they had to know he was due contract, and you don't just give up, like in the Rams case, you don't give up 2 first-rounders if you don't intend on signing him for big dollar. I mean, I do love Jalen Ramsey, obviously, but, and Rams have kind of become that team who sign big-name players for big-name dollars. And when I look at the Cardinals, this is you're right, Caleb. You made a good point. Like, it's the end of his prime, yes. And he's still going to produce. Obviously, he's one of the best receivers in the league. But you have to look at, like, Kyler Murray still has a few years, 3 years, I think. Yeah, 3 years before they can exercise his 5th-year option. So you might as well take advantage of those first few years, maybe put in his contract, a bunch of his bonus in those first few years or something because if Kyler Murray turns out to be the player that we all think he can be, they're going to have to pay him in a few years, like a lot of money. So you pay DeAndre now, you give him what he wants, and I think you just move forward because I think they do like their running back game with Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds back there. So, but they did just make Budda Baker the highest paid safety in NFL history. So
that was a surprise.
Yeah, it was very much a surprise, but we'll see what happens with their financial situation for sure. You guys good with that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that DeAndre Hopkins is going to make Kyler Murray such a better quarterback too. Like,
yeah, I mean, he has to.
So I think that's part of paying DeAndre Hopkins is knowing that you're going to develop your young quarterback to be the face of the franchise. Because, I mean, like you said, Caleb, like DeAndre Hopkins probably had, like he's on the downward slope. Like he's already peaked. He's coming down the hill. And it's now time for them to look at how are we going to make Kyler Murray a great quarterback. And part of that is having DeAndre Hopkins lining up outside so that he can.
The thing about the situation is that they can front load his contract, pay him a lot of money over the next couple of years, and then the back end try to take some of the cash out of that part. So, and then when they pay Kyler, hopefully they still have him for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to watch the Cardinals play this year.
Absolutely.
Mainly for our bet, Cheech. Okay, all right. So sticking with the NFL, Joey Bosa just got paid a lot of money to line up the defensive end for the Los Angeles Chargers. His counterpart, Melvin Ingram, he was sitting out at practice. If you watch Hard Knocks, you know he was sitting out, or he was kind of like sitting in almost. He was there at practice helping other players, but he was not participating, didn't have the helmet on. But Chargers did guarantee his money for this year, so he's back at practice. And we have Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram back on opposite sides. So I was kind of wondering, what are your all's top pass rushers or top pass rush duos in the NFL? We can talk about the Chargers, obviously, but I was just wondering what your thoughts were.
So my favorite, it's the Browns. Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon. I just think that, I mean, Myles Garrett is just an absolute monster. So him and Olivier Vernon, the two of them can get to that quarterback. And I mean, of course, like the DTs that they have supporting them in the middle definitely help them out too. So I definitely think, I mean, because there's another obvious one, the 49ers, but I think that the Browns pass rushers, they are just phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair. Caleb, you got any thoughts?
I've got my top pass rush duo is the Steelers, T.J. Watt and Cameron. That is nasty. And then I would go Bucks, Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett.
Yeah, really good defense. Underrated.
And I would go the better Bosa, Nick Bosa, and the rookie Javon. I'm excited about him. He's going to step right in and be a force out there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to put the Niners as my team, but I just think losing DeForest Buckner kind of hurts a little bit. Like I'm excited to see what that rookie does do. But I went with the Chicago Bears. I know they lost some pieces, but they put, I mean, Khalil Mack, we all know Khalil Mack. He's a monster. But they put Robert Quinn on the other side of him. And we're talking about duos right now. So Robert Quinn was a monster last year in Dallas. He's always produced in his career. And you put somebody like Khalil Mack on the other side of him, he's going to eat. And just look out for that combo. They did lose Leonard Floyd to the Rams, obviously. But I just think Robert Quinn is still such a good player. So I put the Bears here. They did lose some pieces, but I like that duo a lot. But I do like the Steelers too, with old T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward too. So that defense is one of my favorite defenses in the NFL. We've talked about it on other episodes, but
I'll tell you what, I wanted to put the Chiefs up there at some point with Frank Clark and Chris Jones, but they're not quite there yet. They got to take another step before they get there. So
All right. Go ahead.
Just real quick too. I was thinking back to Jadeveon Clowney too, and like where he could, because I mean he's obviously a beast of a pass rusher. If he went to the Broncos, I think that him and Bradley Chubb, I mean, because they already have Von Miller who can get in there too. But I think that Jadeveon Clowney would be like a sick combo, because I mean Von Miller is getting a little older, but Jadeveon Clowney, Bradley Chubb over there, that'd be a gnarly duo.
Yeah, I mean the Broncos are definitely a top 5, I think, pass rushing duo with Bradley Chubb with another year of NFL experience under his belt, opposite of Von Miller. So, I mean, just be interesting to watch for this season. Jadeveon Clowney, man, where does he go? I mean, I think everybody expected him to be signed by now, but we'll see.
Browns. I said Browns.
Oh, I hope not. All right, so a couple of tight ends got the bag this offseason. George Kittle and Travis Kelsey, they got paid top dollar and well deserved, obviously. They paid him like a wide receiver. Do you have any other tight ends in mind that either now or in the next couple of years think deserve that top dollar? I'll start this one off. Obviously, I know Chichi like Mark Andrews a lot, but I think he definitely deserves it because he's proven himself already, and they took that connection he has with Lamar, and they took another tight end in front of him. They took Lamar and Hayden Hurst above him in the draft, the same draft. So I think he's already proven it to everyone, and him and Lamar do contract the same year. It'll be interesting to see who they exercise that fifth-year option with, probably both, or we'll see, because now that tight end cap has gone way up with Kelsey and Kittle getting paid. So it'll be interesting to see it, at that point, what happens to the Ravens, because I think they have to win now over the next, this year or next year, they have to win because they're going to have some contracts due that they're not going to want to pay. That defense is probably going to diminish. CJ Mosley's just sitting there getting paid, hasn't played in 2 years. But yeah, I think Mark Andrews is probably an obvious one, but I don't know if you guys had anybody else.
I might go Waller. Sorry. I might go Waller just because he's on a team really nobody's going to get paid, so they're going to have to pay somebody. So I think Waller definitely gets paid, but there's not a lot of tight ends out there right now that are going to get paid like Kittle or Kelsey are.
Yeah, I think
I think that the league is kind of going in that direction now. I mean, I'm a fan of the tight end position, so I definitely see a lot of value in these dudes. I mean, like Darren Waller, definitely one of them. I think Jared Cook, if he was a little bit younger, he could have definitely been a dude that got paid. But he's just getting he's up there in age. He was a generation too early for this, like these where the tight end is super important to the receiving game. Because I mean, Jared Cook is an awesome piece on that New Orleans offense, but he was doing it, or he's been doing it just before like tight ends were like a big deal until like Travis Kelsey and George Kittle like brought a spotlight to that tight end position. Other than that, I mean, like dudes like Austin Hooper, I think that he did himself a disservice going to the Browns because he's going to be paired up with David Njoku, and like I doubt that Austin Hooper puts up the numbers that he did last year. Because if he would have stayed with the Falcons, I think that he would have been another tight end that deserves to get paid. I mean, he was an absolute monster, especially in the end zone, and especially for fantasy last year. So I think that Austin Hooper would have gotten paid. He's not going to put up the same numbers this year, so he's going to do a little disservice to himself.
Well, he was the highest paid tight end until Kittle got his deal.
Yeah, he got the bag actually a little bit before these guys.
Go to the Browns, but it's nowhere near on the level of Kittle and Kelsey now. So.
No, he's not. It's that whole offense is such a question mark. They have so many pieces, but yeah, Hooper did get a little bit of cash, so I don't know. We'll see.
I'll tell you what, I think you're right though. The tight end position is just going to go up in value. I mean, what do we say? Julio was making like $22 million. So you got Kittle, an average of, I think I looked it up. It was like an average of 16.
Yeah, it's high.
No way that Julio is more valuable to his team. Kittle is to the Niners. Like Kittle is like, I mean, obviously if Julio ends up on the 49ers, like he's going to get the ball. I get it. Yeah. But I think that Kittle is more valuable to the way that the 49ers want to play offense than Julio would be. So, I mean, as far as like, I think the position is just going to skyrocket. They're just going to get paid more and more because people are learning how to work them into the system.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of – go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you look at dudes like Hunter Henry and Hayden Hurst, like these are guys that like these are stud tight ends too that could blow up for their teams. That could be that piece. I mean, like Hunter Henry, we don't know what to expect from the Chargers offense this year, but we know Keenan Allen's in his 30s. We know that Mike Williams sometimes catches the ball, sometimes doesn't, and we know that Tyrod Taylor. We don't know what we're going to get from Tyrod Taylor. So he could rely on Hunter Henry, and Hunter Henry could just turn into the next Kittle or Kelsey or Mark Andrews this season, because we saw that he's a good tight end when he was playing with Phillip Rivers last year. Now let's see how good of a tight end he is when he's with a quarterback that might have to rely on him a lot more. So I think that's why Mark Andrews got such a spotlight on him, was because Lamar was either frantically running, handing the ball off, or like looking for somebody nearby, and Mark Andrews was that dude a lot of the time. So every now and then he'd hit Marquise Brown on a fly route. But yeah, I think that Hunter Henry is one of those guys, or like just the tight end position guys like Hunter Henry. They're on the up and up, and they're definitely going to show that the importance of that position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, even people like Mike Gesicki in Miami, he's going to be a security blanket this year because like those receivers have gone down, and you got Devontae Parker out there. But I mean, you look at Gesicki, he's going to be there. He's going to, like Gibby said, line up in the slot, and they're getting more athletic, the tight end position, that is. Yeah. So you have to take that into consideration when you're drafting fantasy or when these contracts come due. So
yeah, even Tyler Higbee. I mean, the Rams had Cooks, Kupp, and Woods at wide receiver last year. I know Cooks was injured for most of the year or whatever, but Tyler Higbee still came out of nowhere and was good. I mean, even their TE2, Gerald Everett, he was still like making plays in some games and playing in that TE1 position. So like those two dudes are interchangeable. It's just like these guys are popping up out of nowhere, proving that they're more than just blockers.
Yeah, I mean, it's matchups. If you get lined up with a linebacker who's slow and you got a fast, athletic tight end. So we'll see how that progresses in the future. Our tight end's just going to keep getting faster. Our linebacker's going to adjust to that, and they're going to draft just fast linebacker. We'll see how it goes. The league seems to be obviously going towards a more offensive scheme and offensive, just way. So anyway, all right, we'll stick with football. We'll stick with the NFL real quick. Just real quick, Gardner Minshew. So the Jaguars were offering, if you took Gardner Minshew in the first round of your fantasy draft, took a screenshot of it and proved it, you were entered in a contest to win a 24 or a case of Bud Light. You were entered. You didn't just automatically win it or anything. But man, this is so crazy because the Jaguars have given out free beer in the past just for attending their game. If you come to our games, we will give you free beer. The Jaguars are just desperate at this point. They're like, oh, let's put our team on the map. I just want to know if you guys have any thoughts on this because it's just so funny to me. But I do love Minshew Mania, so what's up?
It's just brilliant marketing, man. I mean, this is – everybody loves Minshew Mania. Everybody loves this dude that just came out of absolutely nowhere. And, I mean, he's he's, in my opinion, he's a wannabe Baker Mayfield. He's like a combination of Baker Mayfield and maybe Johnny Football. I don't know. That's the vibe I get from Gardner Minshew, and doing this Bud Light thing solidifies my opinion of him as being exactly that. But I love it because the dude he shows up on the football field too. So I didn't draft him in the first round in any of my drafts, so I can't try and claim that prize. But there was another one you're entered to win. But then if you also win your league with Gardner Minshew as your number one, then there was a much larger prize. It was $1,000. Yeah.
Dude, it's tempting. And I would never even consider this if it wasn't Minshew Mania, so.
I'll tell you what, I'm too invested in my fantasy team to take Gardner Minshew.
That's fair. I mean, it's fair.
But I ended up getting an earlier round quarterback in our draft that we just did. But if I hadn't, Minshew was about to be one of my 12th, 13th round picks because he's got a decent little starting schedule there, and he's not going to be a bad pivot if your quarterback goes down or if you're streaming quarterbacks. So, yeah. But I mean, Jaguars. Remember when the Jaguars were in the AFC Championship 3 years ago?
Yeah, Blake Bortles looked like a good quarterback.
It is insane, man, how far they have fallen. Just selling off pieces of their defense for pennies on the dollar. It's insane.
Yeah, leadership definitely hates their own team. So it's tough though. Yeah, because you're right. They were there. So the Dallas Cowboys, they sneak in a quad clause, and Gerald McCoy, who they signed, in his contract, it stated that, if he has a quad injury, then we don't have to pay him anything and we can get rid of him and, scot free. They don't have to pay him shit. So this actually did happen. Gerald McCoy hurt his quad and he was out and they cut his ass. What do you guys think about this being fair or not fair? Me personally, I love everything about this. I say kudos to the Cowboys and their medical staff, their recruiting efforts, and on behalf of the Cowboys organization, just well done, because you have to. It's a business, so if you know they have a history on this, or whoever's played, because Gerald McCoy is a beast defensive tackle, so if you know they have a history of this injury issue, why not put that in there? Save yourself some cap space if something that does go wrong, which it did. I just say kudos to the medical staff and recruiting in that aspect. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I'll follow you because I'm just going to basically echo what you said. But good, man, that is just solid business. Absolute genius. Like, to be able to cut somebody like that who you just paid a decent amount of money to because of an injury, that's incredible. I think he's still going to make some money. I think he's making $1 million just off signing bonus or something. But yeah, that's absolutely great. And now they can get Earl Thomas or whoever they want to sign. So I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, shout out to their recruiting team and shout out to their lawyers who are drafting up these contracts and getting that in there. Cause that's just absolutely crazy to say, if your quad gets injured, we're not going to pay you. That is just one muscle group on your entire body. And this dude's they knew him so well that hey, this is probably going to happen. So we can get him for a decent deal, but also we got to put this in there so we don't have to pay him. It's bananas that they could come up with something like that and it actually happened. Good on the Cowboys. Save him some money, but
he had to be aware of it, right? He had to know.
Yeah.
He's a guy,
Well, I wonder, yeah, I wonder how big are these contracts? The Cowboys just handed him a 75-page contract, and he just was yeah, they probably won't fuck me, and signed it, and then all of a sudden he blows out his quad, and they're like, hey, bro, you don't play for us anymore, and you're not getting paid.
Now you're thinking about paying those doctors to tell them it's a knee or something,
right?
Right. Yeah.
I'll give you $1 million. I'll give you $1 million to say that this is not my quad. This is my hamstring.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tough for old Jared McCoy, but hopefully he finds a new home next year, maybe. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of crazy / interesting. The Seattle Seahawks, they had a corner. We all know this. Like I said, we're doing a weekly, pretty much a monthly recap. But rookie cornerback, dresses in chicken football gear to sneak into the quarantine room. Is it surprising? And what does this mean maybe to the future of the NFL?
Man, I'm glad that it was a rookie and that it wasn't a veteran, because the rookie doesn't value playing the game as much as the veterans do. And it's just this rookie that just got paid a couple $1 million and wants to show off how good his life is and blah, blah, blah. So I'm glad that it was a rookie, not a veteran, because all the other veterans, they want to play this year. And dudes doing things like that are what's going to ruin the NFL season for all of us. So good on the Seahawks they dropped him, right?
Yeah, they cut him real quick.
Yeah.
Real fast.
Good on the Seahawks for punishing that dude, for catching him, for punishing him for that shit, because that's come on, bro. There's so many fantasy leagues relying on this, and you're gonna jeopardize the season. Not cool.
First off, I love that you immediately went to fantasy. We can't have nice things, right?
Exactly.
These are the reasons why I'm worried if there's a football season at all. I think we're good. I think the football season is going to start, but these are the kind of things that are going to decide whether or not it continues. Have you seen the mask things that they're supposed to wear on their helmets? Okay, I don't know how much that's going to do. So it's going to take these players actually committing to it and taking it upon themselves to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. So yeah, he's an idiot. Cut him.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's just so interesting. We've seen the bubble, kind of at work with the NBA and the NHL. but it's been like for such a small amount of time. Like it's pretty much you're in the bubble, you're in the playoffs, but the football season is 4 to 5 to 6 months long, and I don't know how these guys are gonna like be able to have self control and not go out and do the things that they would usually do. Like obviously say like a team like the Ravens go 11-2 or something, or the Chiefs go 11-2. But what about like I don't know, a Miami team that goes 2-8, 2-9, like in Miami? Do they like go out and then say an offensive lineman goes out and he comes to practice the next day and then the O line room is just fucking done for like 2 weeks, like that's an issue. Like, so
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how many players will respect this and kind of like take this seriously because I just I don't know what we do at that point. Like say a wide receiver core, like because they all practice, they all go into the rooms, they study film. Say an O-line room, say a wide receiver room, something like that. Say all your quarterbacks are just dead for 2 weeks. Like where do you go from there? Like what happens at that point? So these guys are going to have to be responsible going forward because it's like your team depends on that. And I know the NFL does have a bigger roster than the other leagues, but still, man, like it's going to have a big impact. And yeah, so good on the Seahawks for cutting that guy to kind of maybe set the standard, but he was a rookie, like you said. So it's interesting to see where that's going to go.
I think I heard something about they're going to allow for expanded rosters this year, but they're also going to let you like basically stash people on the practice squad and every week there'll be people that you decide can't get picked up by another team. So that's kind of a way of like battling this. But I've heard on like my Chiefs podcast I listen to and stuff about they've asked Andy Reid, hey, are you going to put one of your like quarterbacks in a quarantine, just in case, heaven forbid, Patrick Mahomes gets the coronavirus, but are you going to put somebody back and stuff like that? And I mean, that's a strategy, but I think that's a little far-fetched, but it's interesting to think like where they're going to go with all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just so wild because I mean, we see it in baseball, like, because baseball is still getting the virus every now and then. I think that like a few weeks into the MLB season, like 5 or 6 players in the Marlins got coronavirus.
It was like 18 or 19 of them. It was like the whole team.
Yeah. So, and I mean, they're postponing games left and right because either players are going into quarantine or players are popping positive. Like, I mean, so this is definitely going to be something that we see. I think that the saving grace for football is just the fact that the games are there's just 1 week. So, because a lot of times, like if a player like has to go into quarantine or something like that, from what I've been reading, is like they have to take 2 tests within 48 hours where they're negative, and as long as they're negative on 2 tests within 48 hours, 2 tests in 24 hours, then they're good to go. So I do think that's gonna be the saving grace, but I mean, still, man, like it's so stressful that things like that, like the players sneaking a girl into the hotel are happening. And I mean, these guys are gonna be flying around all over the place to go to games. There's a lot of stress.
I mean, they're wearing those wristbands too. They're wearing wristbands that like notify them, they like vibrate or something when they're 6 feet within somebody too. So they do have, there's a lot of technology. They're getting a daily test, probably like bi-daily, I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff going for the NFL, and you look at the NBA, what they've done, and they've kind of kept it together for the most part. Man, it's so crazy because it's a long season. We're talking about here in a couple weeks it starts, and when it's like snowing at your house, it'll stop. So it's a long season, and I'm interested to see how these teams react throughout the season because what do? They go in a bubble? They can't because they have to travel all over the place. So, yeah, good points. But all right, so let's move towards a little bit of college football real quick before we wrap things up. So Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State, he's kind of petitioning that the Big Ten get going again this year because obviously if you paid any attention to sports, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have decided not to have a season this year, which, whatever. But he could miss out on a lot of money if he doesn't play. He's one of those quarterbacks who you think is good. He could go high in the draft. Obviously, Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence is probably the number one pick, blah, blah, blah. But he's a guy who could definitely increase his stock throughout the season. Do you guys think he, misses out? What do you think is the situation? And there's so many factors that go into it. Like the Big Ten, Pac-12, they say that they're going to play spring football. Do you think spring football is a good idea? There's so many angles you can go at this college football coming up. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but please let me know if you do right now.
First of all, I mean, the Pac-12, just go ahead and cancel your season. Y'all don't really play real football anyway, so go ahead. That's fine. But, I mean, there's been talks now about the Big Ten calling Mulligan, hey, by the way, we might actually do our season, like, starting Thanksgiving time and stuff. But I don't see, there's so much money to be lost with these guys not playing. And I just don't think that schools are actually going to be able to pull that off. So I think we will have a season. The spring ball, I don't know. I mean, there's so many unknowns. Honestly, who knows what's going to happen? But I hope there is. Even if it's just conference games, that's fine. That's fine. Just give me some college football.
So, I mean, that's what doesn't make – when they first announced that they were just going to do conference play, that's what didn't make sense to me because these dudes are still traveling. I mean, West Virginia is still going all the way over to Oklahoma and Texas to play. So they're still traveling across the country. But Ed Orgeron put it best when he was talking about Joe Burrow and talking about the potential for canceling the season. Joe Burrow was a 6th-round draft pick before the season, and then he went 1st overall. So, it's important for these players to get the chance to prove themselves on the field. And I feel bad for dudes in the Big Ten because the other conferences that matter are playing. And Ohio State is a solid football school, as everybody on the planet knows. So the fact that those players are losing out on that chance to prove themselves, meanwhile, they're going to be seeing Bama and Clemson and schools like Duke playing football, and they can't. That's got to be hard for them, and it's definitely going to hurt their draft capital going into the NFL draft next year. And it's not anything against them. It's just their school's decision not to play. So I definitely think that it's a little unfair, and I'm definitely hoping that the Big Ten does mulligan and does end up having a season because, these dudes need to play. Regardless of the money that the schools are losing out on, that's huge, but they're also charging students $50,000 a year to take online classes now. So, I mean, they're making some money back in some bullshit ways. But it's just – I feel bad for players in the Big Ten that are going to be watching SEC, ACC, and Big 12 schools playing, and they're just going to be sitting at home.
Yeah. I mean, first off, to agree with Caleb there, fuck the Pac-12. If you lose the Pac-12 – so my other point is, does college football even matter this year? Because we have conferences sitting out. Does whoever, claims a national championship, does that matter? If the Pac-12 falls off, the Big Ten stays in, and the other 4 Power 5 are still in it, absolutely it matters. I think the world knows that. The Pac-12 has not been relevant since USC was relevant. Obviously, they had Oregon, kind of show up for a year or two with Marcus Mariota playing the national championship, blah, blah, but whatever. But man, if I'm Justin Fields in the Big Ten, and I hope they do come up with something. If they start at Thanksgiving, what does that look like? Who do they play? Is it just a 10-game conference, blah blah blah? But what happens to the other 3 conferences? Do they wait for the Big Ten to finish and then have a championship or a playoff, so to speak? But it's just so weird. I think that even athletic directors don't even have a clue. And so if I'm Justin Fields, personally, you have enough on tape. It's not a lot, but it's enough. All I'm doing, sitting back, I'm practicing, I'm prepping for the draft in 2021. And I'm creating a huge amount of Instagram videos because those circulate like crazy. Whenever Tua got hurt, and he was hurt and nobody knew exactly, he was either going to go top 5, top 6, or not go until the end of the first round. All he had to do was post a couple videos. That shit started going around. And they're looking at this. The social media is super powerful. So if I'm Justin Fields, if they do offer like a spring football, I say fuck no to that because the spring football leads literally days or if not into the NFL draft. The NFL draft's in April. Spring football will look like, I mean, it's going to go that far. So I don't even play. It's unfortunate. I do wish the Big Ten did play because they are obviously Ohio State, Michigan, blah blah blah. They are huge teams that play a factor in the playoff system and all that stuff. So it's hard. I am actually excited for it because my squad Louisville, we got a nice little break in strength of schedule. So to me it matters, but that doesn't matter to anybody else. But boy, if I'm somebody like Justin Fields, just prep, man. Just prep. We've seen what it's done for other guys like Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, blah blah blah. So I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, we were already. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, you can go ahead.
Well, we were already seeing players, forego their bowl games. We were already seeing players opt out. So we're going to see a ton more of that, I am sure. And especially with the Rona, it's definitely you're going to see opt outs. But I'm more of an NFL fan than I am college. So from my perspective, the draft this year, there was so little contact with the draftees this year. And so I think, we still have yet to see how that affected the draft because we still have yet to see how these players are going to unfold. But next year, if we don't have some college football players playing, the draft is going to be wild. It is going to be absolutely wild. You're going to get first-round talents in the 4th, 5th round. It's going to be crazy to see.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. You mentioned logs, what would like a national championship look like? Like who would claim it? So since we have a Kansas fan here, we're just going to transition to basketball real quick. Do you claim a national championship since there wasn't a tournament this year?
Absolutely, I do. I already hung a banner on my wall. No, obviously there's no champion. I say yes, give it to it. But I think we were the best team, so I'm willing to take that.
Okay.
I mean, Kansas was #1 overall before the shutdown.
Absolutely.
And how much did that break your heart whenever they just started, canceling shit one by one? Each conference tournament, one by one, just.
And I'm so biased because I'm obviously a huge Kansas fan, but I think we have the best team in the country, the most balanced team, the most experienced team. Man, that really hurt. It hurt. I was ready for that tournament.
Yeah, it's tough. I know. I think we all were.
We had a couple of seniors who now aren't going to be back, and it's just a shame.
Yeah, feel that pain.
Absolutely correct.
You guys have anything else? Anything else that's went on the past couple weeks we could touch on? Feel free to anything.
No, I'm good. Good. Just good to have you on, Caleb.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for having me on. It was an honor.
Yeah,
you did well filling in for Gibby.
Yeah, big shoes to fill in for Gibby because he's usually probably our most humbled guy. So
yeah. I appreciate Gibby's unbiased perspective. He does his best.
Yeah, he does real good. So we'll get you back on for episode all about you or Chiefs and whatever. So
let me know.
Yeah. All right, man. It's been Nosebleed Perspective.